คณะอุตสาหกรรมอาหารสถาบันเทคโนโลยีพระจอมเกล้าเจ้าคุณทหารลาดกระบังเป็นสถาบันอุดมศึกษาชั้นนำด้านวิทยาศาสตร์และเทคโนโลยีของประเทศหลักสูตรระดับปริญญาตรี3หลักสูตรสาขาวิชาวิทยาศาสตร์และเทคโนโลยีการอาหารสาขาวิชาเทคโนโลยีการหมักและอุตสาหกรรมอาหารสาขาวิชาวิศวกรรมแปรรูปอาหารหลักสูตรระดับปริญญาโท3หลักสูตรสาขาวิชาวิทยาศาสตร์การอาหารสาขาวิชาเทคโนโลยีการบริการอาหารและการจัดการสาขาวิชาการจัดการความปลอดภัยอาหารหลักสูตรระดับปริญญาเอก1หลักสูตรสาขาวิชาวิทยาศาสตร์การอาหารหลักสูตรนานาชาติคณะของเราเน้นการพัฒนาผลิตภัณฑ์อาหารนวัตกรรมและโครงงานวิจัยเพื่อนำไปสู่การสร้างเทคโนโลยีทางอาหารที่สามารถแก้ไขปัญหาได้จริงเราจะเป็นสถาบันแนวหน้าที่ผลิตบุคลากรและสร้างนวัตกรรมเพื่อพัฒนาอุตสาหกรรมอาหารให้เป็นที่ยอมรับในระดับสากล
คณะอุตสาหกรรมอาหารมีการเรียนการสอนเกี่ยวกับอาหารนักศึกษาจะได้เรียนรู้ฝึกคิดวิเคราะห์และปฏิบัติจริงในห้องเรียนห้องปฏิบัติการมีการฝึกงานและสหกิจศึกษาที่สถานประกอบการและมีการศึกษาโจทย์วิจัยที่เกี่ยวข้องกับอาหารที่ทันสมัยคณะมีหลักสูตรระดับปริญญาตรีที่มีการเรียนการสอนครอบคลุมทุกด้านของอุตสาหกรรมอาหารทั้งหมด4หลักสูตรได้แก่ 1. หลักสูตรวิทยาศาสตร์และเทคโนโลยีการอาหาร 2. หลักสูตรเทคโนโลยีการหมักในอุตสาหกรรมอาหาร 3. หลักสูตรวิศวกรรมแปรรูปอาหาร และ 4. หลักสูตรวิทยาศาสตร์การประกอบอาหารและการจัดการการบริการอาหารหลักสูตรนานาชาติสิ่งอำนวยความสะดวกในคณะมีอุปกรณ์ที่พร้อมต่อการเรียนการสอนมีอุปกรณ์และเครื่องมือการแปรรูปอาหารการวิเคราะห์และตรวจสอบคุณภาพอาหารที่ทันสมัยทั้งในระดับห้องปฏิบัติการและในระดับอุตสาหกรรมมีห้องปฏิบัติการการครัวที่พร้อมรองรับการเรียนการสอนรวมถึงร้านอาหารต้นแบบให้นักศึกษาได้ฝึกปฏิบัติเพื่อการเรียนรู้ของนักศึกษาช่วยสนับสนุนและส่งเสริมทักษะปฏิบัติของนักศึกษาให้เป็นไปอย่างมีประสิทธิภาพสูงสุด
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the World Food Webinar of Food Industry, KMITL today. So this year is the first episode of this seasons of now we are on the season 4 now. So we have webinar for 4 years already. So the first EP of today, we had a special guest from overseas, right? Very far away. So we had the webinar on the evening. I think it's good for everyone that flexible time for before that. So today the hour of the webinar today in the topic of enhancing of food regulatory standard with the machine learning technique and near infrared spectroscopy. I think this topic is the formula for everyone is working in the food industry, and I think it's good one to get the knowledge about this. And today not just only me to come to say hello with you. And today we have the honor because we had the co of the MC today or co-moderator with us. Today we have the Mr. Damian Lenz, who is the PhD student of our program of of the food science in the international program of the School of Food Industry. So this first time that Damian will be moderator with me. So give the big hand to the Damian. Hello, Damian.
Hello อาจารย์ส
Hello,
วัสดีครั
hi
บ
from outer space.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, like
Yes, please.
yes, I think this is
Yes.
the first time with you to be MC of this webinar.
Yes.
Will be
Yes.
honors.
Thank you very much for the
So
honor.
I will give the stage for you. So please, Damian.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Damian once again, and thank you everyone for joining. I know we have people all the way from Ghana, people from Indonesia, and also we have people from Thailand joining this program. So it's a very interesting one today. I will be introducing the speaker. He is from actually the best university in Ghana and also competing very high in Africa as well. His name is Dr. John Lewis Zinia Zaukuu. He's a visionary Ghanaian scientist and lecturer whose research continues to transform the world in the area of food safety and quality. His field of expertise includes food science, analytical chemistry, data-driven modeling, machine learning, and chemometrics, which is quite a lot. He has a lot of expertise. He is famous for leveraging innovative technologies such as near-infrared spectroscopy, along with machine learning to enhance food safety and also to fight food fraud. He loves to contribute to the scientific community and has contributed over 50 publications and also peer-reviewed numerous literatures. His studies on rapid and non-destructive detection techniques for high-value foods like honey, palm oil, and protein powders have gained international recognition, advancing both academic knowledge and industrial practices. He's a passionate advocate for knowledge sharing, and so he uses both traditional and digital platforms to educate and engage diverse audiences. He is the owner and chief editor of securedplate.com, which is a website dedicated to educating the public on food facts, sciences, and trends in the world of food science and technology. Dr. Zaukuu belongs to a number of professional communities. He belongs to the International Society of Aquapotomics, Agriculture, Nutrition and Health Academy. He belongs to the Agriculture Nutrition Community of Practice and also Ghana Science Association. Dr. Zaukuu is currently a lecturer at the Department of Food Science and Technology at Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, Ghana. He is the examinations officer and the chairman of the laboratory committee of the Department of Food Science and Technology. And he recently spearheaded efforts as the quality manager to achieve ISO 17025 accreditation for the department's laboratories, making the food science laboratories the only university laboratory to have an ISO 17025 certification. So without much ado, I will hand over to Dr. John Lewis, Zinia Zaukuu, to take us through the presentation. A round of applause, please, from everyone.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, moderators, Damian, and then Orashon. I hope I got the name right. It's a pleasure to meet you all. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I bring you warm morning greetings from Ghana, Kumasi. Yes, yes. So to start, I would share my slides quickly. Yes. Excellent. I hope my screen is visible enough.
Yes, it is.
We already see it. Thank you.
All right, can you hear me, please?
Okay. Please share the
Great.
screen again.
Okay, I'm sharing the screen now. Is it visible, please?
It's
No.
okay. Mm-hmm.
Can you see the screen?
Okay. Not yet.
Okay.
Okay. If any participant have the questions, please leave in the chat box, or we have the question and answer sections after finish of the presentations. All right, see it's already.
All right, can you let me know if you can see my screen, please?
Yes,
Yes,
very
we can
clearly.
see.
Excellent. All
Mhm.
right, so as rightly introduced, I have quite a long name, so I just prefer to be called Lewis. I teach and do research at the food science department in KNUST in Ghana, and I'll be talking briefly today to all of you participants about how to enhance food regulatory standards using machine learning techniques, particularly with near-infrared spectroscopy. So throughout my presentation, I will speak briefly about what food regulatory standards mean from the perspective of food safety. Then I would also touch on some of the things that we need to know as consumers, and also why food regulatory standards are important and how they contribute to this, the SDGs, that is the Sustainable Development Goals. I would also highlight on some of the upcoming challenges that the food regulatory standards are facing, particularly the area of food fraud and food adulteration. Then I will highlight some of our recent research and current ongoing projects in the area of food adulteration detection using these rapid techniques and how they could contribute to strengthening the food regulatory systems. So to start off, food regulatory standards are basically laws and administrative rules. These are rules that have been developed over days and sometimes even years of research and studies, because we need to understand how each particular component of the food contributes to its safety, its taste, its overall quality. So in order to understand these things, we need to set up some minimum boundaries, maximum boundaries, acceptable boundaries, boundaries that we have to be rejected if it exceeds. And all these are mainly because we want to make sure that the food is wholesome, is free from all forms of hazards. That's the biological hazard, chemical hazard, physical consumer. So basically, food regulatory standard is a very complex system, and it's a process that doesn't just take a day. It has to undergo several reviews and several studies, and sometimes even tests. And all because the consumer's health and safety is a priority to the food industry and to that. So basically, food laws and regulations are there to help and protect consumers, even though some of these producers, the producers that want to manipulate the industry, are not happy with them. The laws are good. They are there to help all of us. So these food health and well-being. So basically, there are 6 types of food safety regulations. We have the HACCP, that's the Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points, where basically researchers try to identify critical areas or where points where there could be food safety challenges, and we try to address them. The second area is food labeling regulations, which is very important and crucial. If you have been reading the news, you come across several reports in the instances of wrong labeling, mislabeling. People, for example, just use colorants and then they label it as juice. This is a typical example of things that should be regulated. Another aspect is the good manufacturing practices. That means in as much as the food is going to be consumed, it has to be produced in the right way. This is directly linked to the good agricultural practices. And this process involves the steps from the farm directly until the food gets to the consumer. So it's quite a complex chain as well, and it's also being regulated. We also have the food allergen control. There are several allergies. Some people are allergic to nuts. others to different types of individuals. So several studies to test against existing and newly developed foods so that they can decide whether indeed Can you hear me now, please?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, sorry about that. The network is a bit unstable. Yes. So I was explaining the 6 basic types of food safety regulations as well, because it doesn't just have to do with the production of the food, but it has to do with the storage as well, and then also the transport of the food and several components. And that's the area I'll be focusing on. So basically, it's about all the ingredients that goes into the food and how these ingredients can contribute to the good health of the consumer. Therefore, if these ingredients are manipulated or they are being tampered with, it can cause some serious issues. And that's what we'll be focusing on.
Sorry,
today.
Lewis, if you can share your screen again. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. Of course, of course. All right. I have reshared it again. I hope it's
Yes, it's visible now. Yes, kindly go ahead.
excellent.
Sorry.
Excellent. Thank you. So I was So I will be speaking more on the food supply chain traceability systems. Yeah. So in the food supply chain traceability system, there are some very important agents that are regulating these. So they develop the standards and the regulators and they check it from time to time. First and foremost is the Food and Drugs Administration, that is the FDA. We have the Food and Drugs Administration in every country. So every country has their own FDA, and sometimes the rules may vary depending on geographical locations. So every FDA in the country studies their citizens and their requirements and the laws of the government, and they set up their own regulations. We also have the Food Safety Inspection Services. This is more of an international body, USDA. They also regulate from the continental point of view. We also have the national body, which is the Codex Alimentarius Commission. This commission is comprised of the FDAs in several countries, the WHO, that's the World Health Organization, and the Food and Agriculture Organization. So this is more or less like the mother body, just like the umbrella when it comes to agencies that develop food laws and then regulations. So in recent times, these regulatory bodies have expressed serious concerns and worries about some of the challenges that are facing the industry, particularly food fraud, or in other words, food adulteration. So basically, food fraud or food adulteration, in a simple term, is fake food. That is a complex technique, and it can be done in several ways and presents a lot of challenges. So one of the ways that food fraud can exist is by dilution. In this case, we try to add items that are not approved technically. We also have counterfeiting, where we try to fake or imitate the original ones. Unapproved enhancements are where producers try to add certain components just to enhance the appearance or the looks of the food product to entice consumers, just to attract consumers. We also have the mislabeling, where they inappropriately label items, like I explained earlier. For example, they have a beverage with colorants, and they write that it is fruit juice, which is a big lie. We also have concealment, where, for example, you have a product that is going bad, but they try to add other things to conceal the fact that it's going bad. For example, maybe the food starts to get a bad smell because it's going bad, and they add some odorants, some chemicals with good odors to camouflage We also have substitution with a fake one. Yes, because most some of the food ingredients are expensive, the raw materials to say. So in order to increase their profits and then to invest minimally in the production process, they turn to some of these unfortunate challenges. Food adulteration and food fraud became particularly common and alarming in the world in 2008 after the Chinese milk scandal. I don't know if anybody here may have read about it or heard about it, but in 2008, there were some melamine. Melamine is basically is a highly rich nitrogenous compound. It's not supposed to be in foods. Mostly, it's used in the cement factory and also in the building and construction area. But because it has a high nitrogen content, some producers added it to baby powders, and it caused about 300,000 children to fall seriously ill, and some even passed away. Now, the challenge with this melamine poison was that melamine has a very similar color and appearance to the pure or the unadulterated milk powder. So in this case, when they added it, consumers cannot visually tell. I mean, just looking at it, you cannot tell that this is adulterated or it is authentic. In addition, somebody may ask, but didn't they test them before allowing them to the market? Sure, they did. But the techniques that they used were not sensitive enough to detect this adulteration because most of the existing techniques I will talk about them into details later, but some of them have sensitivity issues. For example, in this melamine case, for example, they use the Duma method, for example, and this Duma method is actually tests for nitrogen content. It doesn't test for actual apparent protein. It tests for nitrogen and it presents protein content as a factor of nitrogen, basically. So if you add any other component that is rich in nitrogen, it won't be detected. So this adulteration made a lot of people start to check and do a lot of studies on food adulteration, how it can be solved. We're trying to find out, okay, what kind of technique should we use? What are some of the adulteration methods that are being done? How can they be detected? So you would see that from 2010 right up until now, there has been a high rise in the food adulteration cases. So this data that I'm presenting is results of publications that were accessed in Science Direct up until 2023, 12 June. That is why in 2023, you see that the bar is a bit lower, but now there are several more. So basically, what we are just trying to say with this course is that food adulteration has become a major concern, and a lot of work, a lot of people are curious about it and are eager to contribute and help address this important challenge. So why is it important to address food adulteration? First of all, as consumers, we are all
Hello, Lewis, are you there?
yes, thank you. City Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, please? I'm here.
Yes,
Can you?
you went off for a bit, so you may
Oh,
have to. Yeah.
okay. Sorry. Then I'm going to recap. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was talking about some of the reasons why we need to address food adulteration. So basically, it affects consumer health, and in most cases, the toxicants that are being used in the food adulteration, they they present what we call long-term toxicity or accumulated toxicity. So that means that you do not see their effects immediately. You wouldn't see it immediately. I mean, when you start to drink these chemical-based juices or consume vegetables that are containing some chemicals, you may sometimes you will see the effect immediately. And then not just so you don't see the effect immediately. It stays cancer and all those things. That is why perhaps there has been an increased case of cancer in the world. We also have the degrading of food quality. So it degrades the food quality in the sense that consumers do not actually get the nutritious benefit of the food. So what consumers are actually expecting to get, the benefits they're expecting to get, the nutrients they're expecting to get, they don't get it, and they're getting something else. So that's a double effect. So first of all, you don't get the expected nutritional benefit, but you're rather getting something harmful, and that is not good. Also, it affects the reputation of the industry. You would realize that when a particular product is found to be adulterated, it is recalled, and then consumers don't trust it again. Consumers start to ask questions. But I thought this was supposed to be safe, just like in the case of the melamine poison in 2008 in China. Consumers started to ask, but didn't the regulatory bodies test these foods? Why are the food industries doing these heinous crimes? So it really affects the reputation of the industry. Lastly, it causes economic loss as well to the states because when a product is found to be adulterated, it has to be recalled. That is waste. So all this is to say food adulteration has several consequences and it shouldn't be taken lightly. Now, there are several methods to detect food adulteration. Some are traditional, some are conventional, some are advanced. When it comes to the traditional detection techniques, I've heard of several of them, but for the sake of time, we will talk about a few only. First of all, when you pick turmeric powder, it has been reported that when you put it in water, the pure turmeric powder should just settle to the bottom. But when there is some floating, it appears to be adulterated. Similarly with honey, it's supposed to just settle at the bottom. But when it quickly disperses, it's suspected to be adulterated. Now, the challenge with some of these, okay, let's look at the other ones as well. We also have rice. They also say that with rice, when it floats, it's likely that it's fake. But you see, some of the challenges with some of these traditional or archaic methods or these crude techniques of detection is that it's not always accurate because in the case of turmeric and honey, for example, it could be due to genetic or genetic variations or geographic differences, you know. Also, it doesn't really tell you exactly the adulterant they use. So it just says that it's fake original, but you cannot tell. Okay, if it's actually is fake, then what is the component in it? What fake compound is in it? We can't really detect that. In the case of the rice, for example, I mean, many of us cook rice all the time at home. Sometimes you wash the rice and you see that some of it flew to the top. It doesn't mean it is fake. Maybe it is probably just contains some holes because of insect attacks or other things, but not necessarily fake. So this is to say that these traditional or crude methods are sometimes 50-50 basis. It's not always accurate. It's not always accurate. And now to emphasize on this point, let's look at more technical challenges. This is also a case of coffee. In this case, you don't know whether it is lukewarm water or not. But the more challenging and more troubling situations are something like these. When you have eggs, for example, yes, eggs are now being adulterated. We now have fake eggs around. Now, when you look at these eggs, can you tell the one that is adulterated? No. You see, so it means that technically these traditional or crude techniques doesn't apply to every food product. In natural sense, with these two eggs, one is real and one is fake. But you can't tell unless you break it. Now, as a food industry or a food regulatory agent, imagine if you want to test for every egg and you have to break every Yeah, so I think my network went off again. I'm resharing the slide. Apologies once again. Yeah, so I was speaking about walnut adulteration. So what I was explaining was that if you have about 100 of them, and you have to break all the 100 just to confirm whether it is authentic or not, and perhaps it turns out that only 20 is authentic, it means that the 80 have been wasted. Now there's already so much food waste in the world, so we need to get further advanced techniques. But well, now walnut is being adulterated, and I was surprised to also read about it, that now some producers can put cement. They mold cement nicely, put it in the walnut shells, cover it with some glues, and then they sell it to unsuspecting consumers. So you go to the market, buy it. By the time you get home, you find out that your walnut contains cement. We also have ham, which is now being produced illegally with colorants and synthetic chemicals. So food adulteration continues to be on the rise. So because our traditional and conventional techniques are not reliable, the traditional and crude techniques are not reliable, there are some conventional techniques that are currently being used, such as the KJAL method, the high-performance liquid chromatography, the DUMA, and the SOSLET. Now, the KJAL and the DUMA basically are used to test for protein, but I explained one of their limitations. Even though they are very effective and very reliable, one of their limitations is that they measure protein based on the nitrogen content, and this is a limitation that can easily be exploited. So when you use high nitrogen containing chemicals, for example, amino acids such as phenylalanine, urea, which is also toxic, or taurine, or glycine, amino acids with high nitrogen contents can be used to adulterate foods, and these methods cannot detect it. With HPLC, it's a very powerful chromatographic technique, but it is also very expensive and it is time consuming. And also you need the technical expertise. In addition, it cannot analyze, the speed of analysis is also something that should be considered depending on what you want to do. We also have SOSLET, which is also quite effective, again, in the detection of fat or lipid components. But basically, SOSLET also has its own limitation due to sample time and also cleanup. So some of these reagents, but most of these reagents also need, some of these chemical methods, also need reagents. So they are not reagent free. You have to buy reagents, and these reagents are also expensive. After that, you have to be thinking about waste disposal, which is also going to bring some extra and additional costs. So basically, they have limited component analysis. They require high technical expertise. They are time consuming and they are subjective in the sense that if you don't know how to use it, you cannot use it. So we need simpler methods and then techniques that can be easily used, but with equal or even more sensitivity and reliability. Now that brings me to spectroscopy. Spectroscopy is a technique that simply has to do with light. And in simple terms, whenever people ask me about spectroscopy, I just tell them spectroscopy is a light fingerprint, just like the way we have the human fingerprint. Every human has a unique fingerprint. So in among all the participants that have joined now, if we are to take everybody's fingerprint, it will be completely different. It's a unique signature for everybody. So in that same sense, we have the spectroscopic signature, the spectroscopic fingerprint. And in this case, we call it the spectra. The spectra is unique to any particular component or chemical. So once we take a spectra of a food substance and there is a deviation from the spectra, you can immediately tell that this is authentic or not. And this technique is a growing technique which is becoming more and more explored and then being adopted. We will explain the techniques soon. So in the principle of spectroscopy, basically you need a light source. You need what we call a monochromator, and then a sample which you would analyze, and then the detector. So the principle in simple terms is that the molecule absorbs light. The energy is transferred to the molecule, and this light, based on how it absorbs it, or it reflects it, or it transmits it, it can be related to its chemical component. Everything absorbs light differently. I remember sometimes when we used to go for outreach programs to teach about spectroscopy, we go with a portable spectroscopic instrument, that is a spectrophotometer, and then we just simply tell the participants to come around and we scan everybody's skin, and they go like, wow, it's different. Yes, because even every human skin absorbs light differently. And now, even these spectroscopic techniques are being explored to detect vitamin contents in the skin and how sometimes the skin can convert sun energy from the sun into vitamins and things like that in the area of Vegemeters, but I wouldn't go into details. So basically, what you need to understand about spectroscopy is that it's a theory that uses light in the electromagnetic spectrum. So basically, light is emitted to the sample. The sample absorbs some of the light, some will be reflected, some will be transmitted. There will be what we call the absorbance, that is the spectra, and then that's what we analyze. So basically, that is spectroscopy, analysis of light in the electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum is very broad. We even have the microwaves. Many of you have the microwaves at home. It's also, the microwave also functions on the electromagnetic spectrum theory. But in this presentation, I'll just be talking about the ultraviolet, that's the UV visible range, the near-infrared spectroscopy, which is between 700 to 2,500 nanometers. That will be the focus of my presentation. That is the technique I use mostly. We also have other techniques though, like Raman spectroscopy, Fourier transform spectroscopy, far and near-infrared spectroscopy. Probably some of you have seen some of these instruments at your workplaces. You can take advantage of them. So also in spectroscopy, there are some researchers that are still working hardly in these areas and trying to develop more advances. One is the aquaphotomics. Aquaphotomics, in the Japanese kanji, it means water and light. So the aquaphotomics theory was developed by Professor Zinia, a Bulgarian research scientist who is based and living in Japan for several years now at the Kobe University. And Professor Chenkova discovered that in the absorption bound of 1,300 to 1,600, depending on how light interacts with water, you can say a lot about the biochemical composition of a sample. So basically, it's using water spectral patterns as a holistic biomarker and a collective mirror. Now, this theory is being explored not only in the food industry, it's being explored in the pharmaceutical industries, in the medicinal industry, in the building and construction industries, and several industries, because the theory is that according to Paracelsus in the 16th century, every living component contains water. There will be at least some form of moisture or water. And based on how these molecules interact, it gives us an idea of the functional properties, the chemical compounds in the food. So aquaphotomics also utilizes the near-infrared spectroscopy theory. So I'll be talking a bit about both of them in this presentation. So basically, near-infrared is rapid. It's very fast. We are some YouTube, you can have analysis within 2 seconds. You can get some sample analyzed. It's cost effective because you don't have to do any maintenance. Once you buy it, that is it. You don't do maintenance. You don't need any reagents. You don't have to think of waste disposal. Yeah. It's non-selective. That means it can be targeted and both non-targeted. You can use for analysis to detect particular components that you are looking for in the food. Or it can just give you a general overview. What I mean by that is, for example, when you pick an adulterated food, maybe you pick an adulterated yogurt, it can tell you that this yogurt contains maybe Sudan dye as a colorant. That is the targeted. In the non-targeted analysis, it will just tell you that this yogurt is fake. It is not original. So non-targeted, it doesn't give you details. Now, for near-infrared spectroscopy, you don't need any technical expertise. Most of the instruments just clicking a button, it scans it. It can give you real-time measurements. That means that you can perhaps even be, I can be in Ghana, and then we do some analysis together from Thailand or Indonesia or in Europe, anywhere. It gives you both quantitative and qualitative output. It can say it is good, it's bad, it's fake, it is authentic, or it can say it contains protein of maybe 90 grams or something, gram per gram. It can give you whatever results you want as well. Now, in recent times, we have even moved from the benchtop, and now we have the handheld versions. Some of them can be as portable as your fist. When you make a fist, you can have some. One of the most important advantages of spectroscopy is that it's non-invasive, like I explained earlier. In the case of foods that needs to be destroyed before you can analyze them, with near-infrared spectroscopy, you don't have to destroy any food. You don't need sample preparation. When you pick eggs, you don't have to crack the egg before you can check whether it is authentic or not. When you pick walnuts, you don't have to crack it because the light will penetrate through it. So these are some of the major advantages of near-infrared spectroscopy. It has gained a lot of attention because it contributes to the Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is sustainable cities and communities. So it's what we call the green technique, green technology. And a lot of people are adopting it now. So in spectroscopy, you have to be slightly vested in data processing, but that is not just in spectroscopy. Every technique at all, you need to be well vested. You have to have a good level of knowledge in data analysis. So in spectroscopy, the results come, like I said, in the form of the spectral fingerprints, which you can see. This is an example. This is an example of a study that was done to detect beef, pea, and whey protein powder adulteration. They were adulterated with amino acids. Now, we usually call this convoluted because just looking at it, you can pick very little information. In fact, looking at it visually and using the legends, that's the label on the figure, we can see that, okay, there's whey protein on top, pea protein is the green one, and then beef is the red one. But we can't really tell what kind of adulterants that they contain. So it means that we need to do some further analysis. Now, in the further analysis that are used to investigate spectroscopic results, we call it chemometrics, basically chemical mathematics. Basically, we are trying to we are trying to adapt or apply mathematical techniques to help us understand what we are seeing. So basically, chemometrics helps in extracting meaningful information from the convoluted spectra. It helps in modeling. In the case of modeling, so when we say we have modeled something, what we are trying to say is that we have developed a theory, a concept, and we want to test it whether it is true or it is false. And we want to, basically, you have to have what we call the calibration data set, which you are going to develop. Then we have the validation data sets, which you are going to test. So basically, the calibration is mostly done in the lab. So I get my samples in my lab. I do the test. For example, I have heard that perhaps there's some oil that is being adulterated with some chemical. So I take the oil, the authentic one. I try to mimic some of these points of adulteration, perhaps from a survey or from literature. We have discovered that they said it contains maybe 5%, 10%, 11%. So I do all that in my lab. That's my calibration. Then once I do my calibration and my calibration data set is working for me in the lab, I now move to the market. I go to the supermarket, to the shops, and go and randomly buy samples from there. Then I now use my developed method in the lab and I test it against what is in the market. And I can say that what I got from vendor B contains erythrocin, but when I got from vendor A, it was authentic. What I got from vendor C contains maybe some different colorants or some different adulterants. So basically, this is the concept of chemometrics or spectroscopy. And it's very important in analyzing data. Now, there are a lot of chemometric techniques, but I will touch only on a few today, just to give you an idea about these techniques. We have the explorative analysis. So explorative analysis, it means that we are just trying to see patterns. We want to see pattern recognition. Pattern recognition. It's just like when you walk into a conference room, you can see patterns. You can see that, okay, we have females, we have males, or we have people wearing blue shirts, people wearing green shirts. But when we see somebody wearing green shirts or blue shirts, it doesn't tell us whether the person is maybe allergic to this or that, or the person is from here or that. So basically, you are just seeing patterns. It doesn't give you real information, but it gives you some idea as to how to proceed. Okay. It also helps us to detect outliers. Outliers simply means that data that is completely off. It's off from the expected normal data. It's not within the normal distribution of the data. Okay, we detect outliers and also it helps us see patterns. We also have the classification methods, which is also very common. I'll be talking today mostly about the LDA. So that's what I will explain. We have the LDA, that is the linear discriminant analysis. Basically, this is a data transformation technique. It's used for analyzing large or huge data sets. Even though it can be used for small data sets as well, but preferably it's more accurate when you use for large data sets. Basically, it groups the data into classes. So in this presentation that we are having today, if we are to apply LDA on all the participants, LDA will simply tell us that, okay, 10% of the participants are from Europe, 70% are from Thailand, and then 20% are from Ghana. So basically, it's grouping them into classes, okay? Or it can also say maybe 10% of them are from food science background, 20 are from economics background, and then the rest are from maybe construction background. So simply you are putting them into classes or into groups. And in this case, the researcher has that mandate. You, the researcher, you decide, because you are analyzing the data, and you understand the data, you know your objectives, you know what you are looking for. So you will decide and tell that, I want this group, this particular grouping, I want my samples to be grouped like this and like that. So you decide it. Now, we also have the regression technique. This mostly produces quantitative data. We're talking a bit about partial least square regression. Basically, it's used to predict and give you, in simple and rapid terms, how your samples, your calibration and your validation samples are being related to each other. So these are some of the techniques. So basically, in my presentation, I'll be talking about LDA and partial least square regression. So now I'm going to share with you some of the works or the studies that have been going on in my laboratory and with my research team in Europe, in Ghana, and in Japan. So we have done some studies to detect palm oil that is being adulterated with leaf extracts. You know, sorghum leaf has a naturally red colorant. In fact, in Ghana, it's being used to prepare some food, especially one of the local delicacies, which we call wache. Maybe Damian will tell you a little bit about this later. Yes. So sorghum leaf in water or in liquid solution, it's usually, the color can be extracted. Now we have palm oil, which is also a local delicacy, which is produced from palm kernels. But some producers have gone to the length of using unripe palm kernels. And because it's unripe, it doesn't produce that naturally bright red color that everybody would be expecting. What the consumers expect to see, the bright red color, you don't get it. So these producers now decide that they want to test the potential of deceiving consumers by adding these sorghum leaves so that the color is extracted into the oil, so that consumers will think it is fresh as they expect, but it's not. Some also go to the extent of using colorants. So we did this study, which was published in the Journal of Food Compositional Analysis. And in our study, we did our calibration data set to involve different concentrations, as you can see at the lower right side. We have the 0%, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10% adulteration because we expected that they use it in lower concentrations. So we developed our model. We did an LDA. So this is a classic example of an LDA plot. We grouped the samples based on the concentrations, and we saw that our model, our calibration model was good enough. So we decided to move and get some test samples, validation samples from the market. So we took our models to the market, some selected markets in Ghana, and then we did a study and compared our calibration model to the samples that we had in the markets. And we discovered that there were 3 markets that were very close to our samples that were containing leaf colorants. So in LDA, when there is an overlap, it means that they are very similar. But when there is no overlap, it means that they are very different. So we realized that there were some 2 markets that had so we suspect that those samples are likely to contain sorghum leaf as an adulterant. So this was the finding from the palm oil study. We also went ahead to do adulteration of shrimp. I know in Thailand it's very common. A very common form of adulteration is when they put lead in shrimp head because it's a delicacy in Thailand. And lead is a carcinogenic chemical. It's very bad. Some people also inject gels into the body of the shrimps to make it bulky so that they can sell it at a higher price. Yes, so these are some of the forms of adulteration. In Ghana, however, the common form of shrimp adulteration is that they mill the head. So technically in Ghana, we prefer our shrimp such that they don't have the head, the thorax. We expect only the abdomen of the shrimp. But some producers add the head. The reason why a lot of consumers don't want the head is because the head is suspected to contain stones and some other physical hazards. So we prefer only the abdomen to be milled and used in the food. It's also illegal in Ghana to go and then harvest immature shrimps or small shrimps, but yet still some people do it and add it because the immature shrimps do not contain the expected nutrients that we want. So these are some of the adulteration of shrimps. So we decided to investigate this in Ghana. This has also been published. So we developed our models again to test different concentrations of these adulterant shrimp head in the shrimp powder. And then again, we discovered that there was one particular market that was suspected to contain the head. That means that the vendors there milled the shrimp head and added it to the abdomen. So food adulteration is being, I mean, it's quite serious, yes. So we went ahead again. We also heard some rumors about people like some producers adulterating peanut butter and then yogurt in Ghana. So we went ahead to test some of these. So for the yogurt, instead of using the original milk powder, they add some flour because the milk powder is more expensive. So this is a typical example of substitution adulteration. So they add flour to milk powder, but flour is starchy. So you see, consumers are taking yogurt because they know yogurt is rich in proteins. But when you're adding flour, you're either giving them more carbohydrates. Perhaps the consumer doesn't want carbohydrates. Why that consumer is trying to check his or her carbohydrate consumption, and you are giving more calories instead of giving more protein. So we started to investigate this. So we also checked for different concentration of this possible flour, that's the starch, in the yogurt. So we saw that our calibration model was okay and efficient enough. So we tested it on the market. And once again, we found that there were some products, especially this particular one. There was one brand of yogurt that was suspected to use this starch, which is very unfortunate. But consumers cannot tell because when you take the yogurt, it looks just like the authentic one in terms of appearance and texture. So food adulteration is also being done to yogurt. About with regards to the peanut butter, we also did our calibration data set, which gave us some good accuracy. So we went ahead to test in the market. But for that one, we didn't really find any particular market that contained the granules, the peanut butter adulterant. But what we discovered was that all the peanut butter from the markets that we tested are different. They're all different, but we didn't go further to see what the difference was. But perhaps these differences could be due to the differences in manufacturing processes, because perhaps we produce the peanut butter differently, different drying periods, different milling textures, different varieties of the peanuts. It could be due to anything. It could also be due to the fact that they also add unaccepted material, but we couldn't confirm that. But all we confirmed was that they were all different, and that means that at least it needs some quality control because peanut butter must be controlled. Yes, so we went ahead to also do some study on pork, because in Ghana, pork is also a delicacy, especially the grilled and fried pork. And sometimes when you go to the market, you see the pork looking very colored, just like the image here. You can see different colors. We don't know what's going on with these colors, but consumers sometimes are concerned. What could they be adding, you know? So we decided to do some study again in some Ghanaian markets, and this was also published in the Journal of Meat Science. So it's a highly reputable journal in the world of meat. So we tested the possibility of maybe the pork containing some dye, which is Ponsu 4R. In fact, when we went to the market to do the survey, the market sellers couldn't tell us the name of the dye. They just tell us they use some red dye. They don't know what it is. They brought out the bottle. The bottle had no labeling, so they didn't even know what it was. They didn't know whether it was an acceptable dye or not. They just use it in any amount they want. They don't have any control over it. So definitely this needs to be checked. So we did our calibration samples again to try to detect these adulterants. So we realized that in our calibration data set, when you include these adulterants at different concentrations, the near-infrared spectroscopy could detect it. And also, when you even soak the pork in the colorant at different times, you can detect it with spectroscopy. Now, we also did some study on maca powder. Maca is nowadays in the world is being considered as more or less like an aphrodisiac, or like it's actually a herbal. It's being used for herbal treatments because some people believe that it's a natural aphrodisiac, and a lot of people have gotten interested in it. But unfortunately, because of such interest, producers have also become interested in making more money out of it, and because of that, they have decided to introduce different things into it. Some producers add soy, some add maize flour. So basically, what you would have noticed by now is that when these producers are adulterating the foods, they are very careful in selecting the adulterants. They select adulterants that look almost exactly like the authentic one, so that consumers cannot detect it unless you use advanced techniques. So we did some study to detect the possibility of detecting maize and then soy flour in maca powder. Now, we did the study in 3 different types of maca, different maca varieties, which was yellow maca, black maca, and then red maca. And we discovered that, first of all, when you put soy sauce, which is on the left side, or when you put maize, sorry, not soy sauce, I mean soy powder, which is on the left side, and then when you put maize powder, which is on the right side, you can see that they are all distinct. They are all different, even at different concentrations. So that means that our validation model is good enough and probably should be tested in the market. Similarly, when you check the different concentrations of the soy, they are different, whether it is black maca, red maca, yellow maca. So our study applies to different varieties, which is what experts in the area are now advising. And when you are doing a model to detect something or any form of food adulteration, the model should try to cover as many varieties and as many variances as possible, okay? So this is one of the areas that we work on. We also did some study, which is also very interesting, in banana. Banana doesn't grow everywhere. It's not every country that can produce banana because of the environmental conditions. So many countries rely on imports for banana into the country. And some farmers have taken advantage of this. So some farmers and some producers artificially ripen the banana. There are some, you can put banana in dark rooms or in dark boxes or in dark sacks to enhance ripening. Basically, this has to do with the ethylene contents of the banana. So what some producers are doing now is that they are using calcium carbide, which is very toxic, very, very toxic to the humans. They try to use calcium carbide to induce artificial ripening. This study is very important. So it was actually published in the Journal of Nature Food Science, because it's actually very important. And it's very, very, very unfortunate because this calcium carbide, when consumed, has long-term accumulated toxicities. So now we did our study on local banana and foreign banana. We realized that when you artificially induce ripening in local banana and in foreign banana, our model could detect the differences. We also went ahead to say, okay, so because near-infrared is non-invasive, what if we don't peel it? Because if you are peeling the banana and it turns out that it's not adulterated, it's going to be waste. So we said, okay, then we are going to do a further step in our study. We are going to include the banana with the peels and the ones without the peels. And when we did that, we could see that our model could still detect these differences. We also did some study on groundnut oil, where some consumers, so peanut oil or groundnut oil is quite expensive compared to the other oils. So some consumers add local oils to peanut oil and sell it as peanut oil just to make money. So this we also tested using ultraviolet visible spectroscopy and the near-infrared spectroscopy. And we realized that when we tested our models against those on the market, there were 3 markets here. These 3 markets they were very similar to our adulterated samples in the models. So we suspect that they were adulterated. We went ahead to check for their sensitivity, and we could see that they could all be detected with high sensitivity and precision and specificity and accuracy. These are very important parameters in quality control. There was also a study we did to detect tomato paste adulteration. And we realized that, tomato is very rich in lycopene, which is a very good antioxidant, which is very highly beneficial to the body. It helps you get rid of free radicals in your body. But some people went ahead to adulterate it with flour and other components and paprika seed. So we realized in our study, we saw that our model could classify this adulteration with paprika seed up to even 90% accuracy. The accuracy was relatively less with cornstarch, but it was still very effective. Now, one of our most recent studies was melon seed powder, or more what we call egusi in Ghana. Melon seed is consumed all across the world because it is considered to be very nutritious and it contains some proteins as well. Now, melon seed powder is sometimes also adulterated with flour. So instead of getting the expected protein, you'll be getting unexpected carbohydrates. So we tested this adulteration. We developed our model. We tested adulteration of this flour with gari, and then maize, and then soy. Gari here means that cassava is more or less a product produced from cassava. Yes, it's dried cassava. So basically, when we tested our model, it was also effective in classifying these adulterants. You can see them here. When you use the maize, you can see that all the different concentrations were different. Also with the cassava powder, all were all different, and the soil were all different. We also applied the aquaphotomics theory, that is the theory of water and light, in detecting tomato powder extracts that were containing colorants. And we could also detect that even though they were colorants, using the aquaphotomics and the water, you see, this is very crucial because this is a powder, and people naturally expect that powders do not have water or moisture, or even if they do, the amount is very low or very insignificant. By using that apparent insignificant or low moisture, we could still detect differences in tomato powder adulteration when colorants were used. Now, this is what we call an aquagram. It is one of the major ways of interpreting aquaphotomic results, and simply is using water spectral patterns at different absorption bands. We could see some patterns in the aquagrams that gave us some ideas about the differences in the sample based on the adulteration that was going on. So what are all these? What do all these mean for we, the consumers? We are saying that we have developed models that can detect adulteration in pork. It can detect adulteration in melon seed, adulteration in coffee, and all that. But what does it mean for the consumer? Because basically, as of up until now, what the regulatory body do is that they go to they randomly take their samples and check in the lab. But we believe, my team and I that the future, we have to develop these models, and then we have to input these models into a cloud system, which can somehow be invariably linked to consumers' smartphones or any other smart item. Now we are in the world of digitalization. So we believe that it's time to digitalize all these models. It's no longer suitable to just develop the models in the lab and always go to the market to test. One of the advantages is that perhaps the models we have developed may work only in one geographical location, maybe only in Kumasi, or maybe in Accra, or maybe only in Ghana, or maybe only in Thailand, or perhaps only in Bangkok, or only in perhaps Germany, you see, or perhaps only in Indonesia or any other country. But if we have a cloud system, then the modules that were developed from Ghana can go there, those from Thailand will go there, those from everywhere would go there. So it's going to be a cloud system so that the modules can be applicable irrespective of your location. When you have your mobile phone, probably with an app, you can just go, when you're buying an item, you can scan and it can tell you that this is original, this is fake, or this contains that, this doesn't contain that. So this is one of the major steps that we believe should be the future direction. Another direction is GMOs, which are genetically modified foods. Yes, this is a very controversial topic. Some countries have made some partial laws to accept these GMOs. Some countries are very strict and are saying no, because it's a very controversial topic. Some people claim it has some negative effects for the consumers. Some says that we need to provide more food for the growing population, and GMO is the only way. So it's a controversial topic. But NIR or spectroscopy plays a key role in this, because whether we go GMO or not, near-infrared spectroscopy can easily detect whether this is GMO or this is not GMO, or if this GMO was done in the right way or it was not done in the right way. It is one of the other future steps for spectroscopy and NIR. Also, one of the emerging challenges in the world is climate change. Climate change is quickly affecting the world. Whether we like it or not, it has come and it is here to stay. And we have to find a way to manage this situation. So climate change is affecting farmers and food crops, and is directly impacting on nutritional content of food and also the health benefit that the food presents to the consumers. So it's something that we are actually really need to work on. So NIR can be used to trace the impact of climate change on nutritious or the nutritional profile of foods. So in conclusion, what I'm trying to say is that spectroscopy, it's a very reliable technique which has potentials far beyond our imaginations if it is properly adopted and properly used and been properly digitalized. So regulatory bodies can adopt this technique. And in fact, if we do, it presents a lot of advantages, such as cost reduction, waste reduction, and then high sensitivity and reliable results. I cannot end this presentation without acknowledging and thanking the School of Food Industry in Thailand for this great opportunity as I stand here to represent my department and my university. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm honored. I also like to express my appreciation to all my colleagues in the food science department, all my colleagues outside the department who have joined this presentation, my students, I can see a few of you here, and then also my partners in the Aquaphotomics lab in Kobe in Japan, and also my research partners in Europe. And also, I also like to thank my formidable team in Ghana, my research and teaching assistants. Some of them I do not have pictures with them yet, so I can only write their names: Vivian, Hawaii, Yusuf, and Elikem, and everybody wherever you are. We appreciate it. And also my European team, who have been very helpful in expanding these areas of chemometrics and food science for food quality safety and for enhancing food regulatory bodies and systems. So thank you very much. This is my email. You can reach me at any time. And I'm ready for questions if you need any clarifications. Thank you very much, Damian, and all the moderators.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zaukuu, or as we usually call you, Lewis. Thank you very much. It was a very, very interesting presentation. I enjoyed it. And I know that our participants also enjoyed it. It's been very informative, and it's been very good. Thank you once again. Before I move on, so if anyone has any questions, you can type it in the chat box. We will read it out, and then Dr. Zaukuu will answer them. But before I move to the questions in the comments, I want to ask one. Dr. Zaukuu, so one of the things you made mention of is, these adulterants being used in the food products. Sometimes it's very difficult to know exactly which adulterants, because to be able to carry out, the near-infrared spectroscopy, we need to know exactly what adulterants are being used in the food product before we can go to the lab, prepare the samples, and then run them, and then be able to know if the models that we made can be able to detect them. So my question is, what are some of the techniques that are available to, per your expertise, are available to be able to identify these adulterants so that people can, or scientists such as you can be able to, run to the lab quickly, develop models for it to be used?
Thank you very much for the question. So, in fact, to be very precise, the most accurate way and most reliable way to be able to find out about some of these adulterants is through interactions. So interactions in the form of a market survey. So for us, we get these ideas because we are constantly on the ground. You have to be naturally curious and always ask questions. So when you go to the market, for example, or to the shop to buy an item that you're expecting, and you feel it or you look at it, or you come and use it at your home, and you see that no, there's something different, then you start to ask questions. Mostly the producers will shy away from it. But when you approach them that, oh, perhaps it's just for research basis, or perhaps you are just curious and want to do some yourself, some of them will open up and say, okay, I think for me, I added this, or they would even go ahead and say, I didn't add any adulterant, but I think that my colleague here has been adding this or that. Then you can get an idea about it. Now, when you get that idea, based on the survey or the discussions, you can now even get more details. Okay, if my colleague adds this or that, in what concentration do you think your colleague adds it? Then, they would say, oh, perhaps maybe just 1 cup or 2 cups. Then you can get an idea. You in the lab will now try to estimate what the equivalence of 1 cup in terms of concentration. So that is basically how it starts. Then once you know those concentrations, you can now develop them, or should I say mimic them. You can mimic them in the context of your objectives, and then you can now develop your models. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yes. So it means that we need like a lot of investigation and interactions with producers and whatnot to be able to identify some of these adulterants. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. All right. So, okay. So my second question, just before we move on to the questions in the chat box. I like the idea about sharing these models in the cloud system, where many countries can be able to access the models and apply it in their systems. I wanted to find out from you. Most of the time, some of these products are, genetically different, right? For example, if it's banana here maybe, and banana in Ghana may be different. Pork, the species of pork here, or the species of pork here may be different from that of Ghana. So in that case, after developing a model in Ghana which looks at the what is the colorant in the pork.
Yes.
If I want to apply it here in Thailand, for example, how do I go about it? Can I just take the model, fit it into my maybe near infrared spectroscopy machine, and then I can quickly detect, it here, or do I have to do other things?
Yes, I like this question, Damian. Thank you very much. It's a very good question. This actually is because of this similar thinking ideology. That is why my team and I are really advocating that these models be shared globally. Because as you rightly said, the models that are developed in Ghana here may not work in Thailand because the genetic variations or the species variations or the biochemical variations of the foods that were tested may be different, because perhaps in Ghana, for example, in the pork that you mentioned, the pork that we use, maybe we use a different species, but in Thailand it's an entirely different species. And if NIL says that it can be targeted or non-targeted, so perhaps these variations in species can bring differences. So you cannot. So the model can be tested in Thailand, but basically the accuracy may be low. That is what I'm trying to say. So because it will be low, because the variances that are going to come forth from the application in Thailand were not considered in the model development. So perhaps when you use that same model in Ghana, you can get an accuracy of about 90 to 100%. But when you use it in Thailand, you get an accuracy of about maybe 60 to 50% or 70% thereabout. So the accuracy would be quite low. Because of this, that's why experts in the modeling and econometric area are now advocating that people share their data set and then calibration models, so that along the way in the future, all these models can be put together, so that irrespective of your location, when you apply it, you should get good accuracies. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. This is really good. But I think one of the things that can, help us to improve in this area, I think it's like international collaborations, right? So this is really good. And I know that once a model is developed, it can be extended. So it means that if we work globally, we can be able to address some of these challenges and have specific models of all products that are moving to the market internationally. Thank you very much. So I'll move on to the questions in the chat box. So this question is from Joseph. Joseph says, given your presentation on methods to detect adulteration in food, I'd like to ask, how can similar approaches be applied to detect issues like the recent incident in Ghana where expiry dates on imported rice were altered? I think this question has to do with rice expiry date. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. So, first of all, the expiry dates. Let me first of all talk about expiry and best before. Okay, when we talk of expiry date, it means that it can no longer be consumed. All the safety or the wholesomeness of the food cannot be guaranteed. When we talk of best before, you can still consume it, but you cannot be guaranteed to get the expected nutritional requirements that is on it. This all has to do with the labeling. Like I said. So even though my presentation was mostly focused on food traceability and not entirely labeling, but I would say that the labeling is very important. And labeling also falls within the scope of food adulteration. Now, it's very possible to develop modules to detect this rice adulteration. I'm sorry, I mean rice labeling with expiry dates. Yes. But now the only way that you have to do that is, it means that you have to it will be a quite complex task. Because what it means is that you have to develop models to try and target different expiry dates. Or you can simply just do a model to have that would be a simple non-targeted one. That means that you can say that the rice is expired or not. So you can simply scan it. You can simply scan it and it will tell you that it is expired or it's not expired. But if you want to say maybe it has been expired for 2 years, for 1 year, for 5 years, then you will have to go the complex chain. So, but simply this one, NIL can easily do this. In fact, you can either decide to scan the whole rice or to mail it. It can easily be done in the case of this expired rice. But perhaps because NIL is still an area that is growing, maybe it's an area that we can touch on. So I think maybe my team and I would take it up and then we'll try to figure out some models.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So then it means going forward, it's possible for me to probably walk into the market and just scan some food products and confirm whether it's authenticity,
Yes.
whether it's expired or not. It's also
Yes,
possible. So that
is
deals
after all the modules have been transferred to the cloud and linked with the digitalized system. Yes.
Right. That's very interesting. I guess the future is the future is looking good. Okay.
Yeah,
So the next
future is
question.
lights, and that's NIR. NIR is lights.
Right. Thank you. Yes. So the next question is from Samuel. Samuel says that microorganisms have become a significant concern for food safety in recent times. Has NIR spectroscopy been applied to address food safety challenges related to food microbiology? And how are these issues typically investigated using this technique?
All right. Thank you, Samuel. Yes, so NIR and spectroscopy and chemometrics, they have already been applied intensively in pathogenic microbe detection, especially at the pharmaceutical and medicinal level. But in the food domain, it is minimally explored. It is still gaining grounds. It's still gaining grounds. And actually, it's an area that me myself have been thinking of venturing into, because so far I've been looking at physical hazards and chemical hazards, but now we could go to the biological hazards such as these microorganisms, and I think it's an area for exploration. But there are some studies all the way. There are some studies nonetheless. There are some studies about NI application in microbial detection, but they are scanty, and I think that it can be recommended because microbial detection techniques are expensive, especially with the pictures of aegers, and then you need incubators and you need food chambers, and these are all a lot of money, especially in developing countries like Ghana. Some of these financial challenges, we have to explore NIR. So of course it has been done. It's nothing. It has been done. There are studies that have already done this, but it's not that they are scanty and we need to, do more. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
In fact,
if anyone,
to even add up, there are even studies on a study that my team and I recently conducted, which is still being reviewed, where we detected aflatoxins, which is it's a product. Aflatoxins are being produced by some fungi, aspergillus, and we discovered that with NIR we can detect even the byproducts of these toxins, such as aflatoxin, in wine. So because it's not published yet, I didn't share it. But yes, so this microbial detection technique in NIR is definitely the area to go to.
Yeah. That sounds very interesting, because these toxins have been said to cause, they are mutagens, cancer-causing agents, and they could definitely affect. So if the NIR is able to detect some of these mutagens, then that's really interesting. Thank you very much, Lewis. If anyone has any question and you have not yet typed in the box, then we'd like to ask.
I can see a hand up.
Oh, okay.
I have a question.
Okay, please go ahead. Sorry, Ajahn.
Okay, Kak. So I would like to asking that because in normally the food, right, have the many of the composition, like some of food type that have the what they say heterogeneous food sample. So for apply of the NIRs or machine learning technique or something that have the problem, if we use with the food, we have the many of the complex substance in there. In your idea, please.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. I understand it perfectly. Yes, so The biochemical composition of food is very varied. Like you rightly said, some foods can have carbohydrates only, some can have even carbohydrate, protein, antioxidants, and all that. So in that sense, you may have to apply a targeted approach. So perhaps if maybe in the studies, the adulteration that we are doing, we are looking at perhaps let's say the colorants. Let me use the pork again. Pork that was being adulterated with colorants. It means that in that context, we are mostly interested in how the colorant affects those physical compositions. So then we can go an extra step to measure those physical compositions, the proteins, the carbohydrates, and the antioxidants, and everything in that food component. When we measure it, then we have what we call the reference data. Now, we're using that reference data, we will now go and develop a model which we call the partial least square regression model. But I didn't talk about the partial least square regression model in my presentation because of the time factor. But yes, well, what you are saying is very possible. For the partial least square regression model, the way it works is that it will tell you that because of the colorant that was added, protein content has decreased, or it will say that carbohydrate content has decreased. Like in the case of our melamine, sorry, not melamine, the study where we detected adulteration of melon seed powder with soy and then maize flour. We detected that when the melon seed powder naturally is rich in protein, but we detected that when you add the maize as an adulterant, it decreases the protein content of the soy. So it means the protein content, sorry, of the melon seed powder. But when you add soy as an adulterant, it increases the protein content because soy is also rich in protein. So the adulterants always inadvertently affects the chemical composition of the food. So yes, we when we are doing such studies, we factor in all those things.
Thank you so much for your answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone had any questions? More? Okay.
Yeah, Damian, I'm not. I was expecting more questions from your students too.
Okay.
It's just maybe they enjoyed it so much they understand it very well, so there are no questions. You did an excellent
Okay.
presentation, so
Okay.
I guess that's how it goes. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you too. Thank you too. Thank you too. All right.
Ajahn, you can go ahead, please.
Okay, so I think that today we have a lot of knowledge, right, about the NIR and the futures of food industry, because now the detection thing is very important in our part for the safety of our consumer, right? So today I have to thank you, the speaker, so much. But before in that, I would like to invite everyone to take a photo together for this webinar. So we have many people to join us today. So everyone, please is open off your cameras and we're gonna take a photo together. Yeah, to be a remember day. Okay, so I will give you a time, maybe 3 minutes for take care of your face before we take a photo together. Okay, right. Now everyone is turn on your camera, please. So thank you so much. Everyone look good. Right? Okay. So we have the many students from our faculty joining us today. I hope you got a lot of knowledge about our webinar today and for the detection method. Okay, so I think many of people open up their camera now. All right. So after open the cameras, take a photo together. I will share all the certificate link and certificate QR code. Right. Okay, now everyone is here. Okay, everyone smile. Okay, we have 4 screens, so I will take a capture for 3 times. Okay. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, 1. Okay, and again, please. 1, 2, 3, smile. And one more, please. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Everyone, thank you so much, right, for your wonderful presentations. And I hope that everyone happy today. I would like to share the screens of the certificate for today. So please, sharing of the screen of certificate, please. Okay, so everyone, you can scan off the QR code here and filling of the informations, your name and your email for online certificate to send it to you tomorrow. We will send it tomorrow. So please add up your names and your surname and corrected email so we can send directly to your emails and to give the score of the webinar today. So I would like to thank you everyone to join us. And for the School of Food Industry, we will have the webinar like this in 5 times in each season. So this one is just first episode, and I hope is everyone enjoy for this one. And for next episode, I would like to sharing to you in the future. So can be follow us in every platform like a Facebook, Instagrams, or many things. We will sharing the information. And today I have to thank you, my co-MC, very much for Mr. Damian, right? For the fourth MC. So thank you so much. If you have any topic that you interesting to listen or to share with us, can be contact us, and I would like to find the speaker to you, right? And have to thank you about our speaker today again to be joining us. Even it's early morning over there, right? I heard that it's 8:30 when we start. Right? Okay. So thank you so much everyone to join us here, and I hope you enjoy this webinar and have the more knowledge about this method. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you too. Thank you very much too.
Yes.
Yeah.
ขอบคุณค่ะ สวัส
Thank
ดี
you
ค่ะ
everyone ขอบคุณครับสวัสดีครั
ส
บ
วัสดีค่ะ บ๊ายบาย
Bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye everyone